I feel like as women, we are on this lifelong mission to find fabulous makeup products, and there's so many options out there. We need it to make us look good. We need it to not break the bank. We need it to have fabulous consistency, not break out our skin. Like, there's so many factors that go into that. And I'm so happy that I found Shine Makeup earlier this year because it gives me all the things that I need. It doesn't break the bank. The consistency is my favorite out of any makeup that I've ever tried. The people behind Shine Makeup are absolutely amazing, but I will say the best part about Shine Makeup is I know that everybody that I share it with is going to love it just as much as I do.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. First of all, can I just say, I just wish this was a classroom, and I wish that we could all be having a discussion right now. I think that would be so much fun. I know that you guys have so much to share, and I would love learning from you. But for now, I'm just going to have to monologue here. This is what we've got to work with. So let me introduce myself. My name is Jamie Cook. I am the mom of 4 kids. I have a son who's 11, and then I have 3 little girls, ages 8, 5, and 3. And I run an Instagram page called Wander and Scout. It's just a really fun, creative outlet for me. It's also a way that I love to connect with other moms and kind of build a community of motherhood, talking about things that are going on for us as moms. I post a lot about local adventures with kids. I post about traditions and some sort of like tips and tricks and to make life easier, and some extremely deep thoughts on motherhood. My family, we've raised our family primarily in first San Francisco and then Boston, and then 3 years ago we moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, and that's where we are now. But it was my experience as a new mom living in San Francisco and then again later in Boston that really instilled in me this love of adventuring with my kids. We lived in a little tiny apartment right on Baker Beach in San Francisco, and there was really nothing to do at home. So my little guy, who was 6 months when we moved there, he and I would just spend our days exploring this awesome city while my husband was doing he was working at an investment bank, and he was working like 90-hour work weeks, and we never saw him. So I had to learn how to be really just independent, and I loved sort of embracing this idea of exploration. So that's sort of like what sparked that in me. And then moving to Boston, only more so, like exploring all of New England. I loved it. One thing that was interesting was that I think it's easy when we're living in the suburbs to just kind of like get into the routine of going to Target and feeling like we need to clean our house and like going round and round. And when you have a little tiny apartment and all your friends have little tiny apartments, everyone wants to get out and everyone wants to explore. And so that's what we did. Now I have these 4 kids, and I do live in the suburbs now, but I've tried to keep a little bit of that spirit of adventure with me now. One thing that I find now in my sort of mature stage of mothering is that sometimes I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I sometimes feel like a hamster on a wheel. That it's just, we've got our chores to do, we've got our school schedule, we've got scouts and piano and soccer and baseball practice and dance and all of the responsibilities and the things that we have to keep up with. And those are good and important, and there is beauty in those rituals and routines. But do you guys ever feel just drained from it all? Do you ever feel like you just kind of like the life has been taken out of you? I know for me, when I start feeling that way, it's me craving some time with my kids that's a break from that routine. And that is when I like to take them and whisk them away and go on some little fun adventure. So every year at Christmas time, I give my family, I wrap one of these up and give them our family yearbook for the year. These books I make in blurb, and we call them the cookbook. Cook is our last name. And my kids have come to like really love getting these every year at Christmas. This is the first year in 9 years I didn't pull it off. I wasn't able to pull it off. So hopefully for Valentine's Day, they'll get one this year. But inside these books are pages and pages of the memories we've made that year and the adventures we've gone on. And each January, each new year, I look at that year and I think, what is going to be written on the pages of our cookbook this year? What's going to go in there? And I have no idea. And then with each experience and each adventure, we are writing the pages of that book. And these books are my kids' childhoods. They really are. And so that's another thing I try and think about as I, when I'm feeling like it's overwhelming to kind of get out the door with these kids and head up to the mountains or do something. I just think, I want this in our book this year. So that's sort of like the overarching big ideas about why we like to do this. But let's get down to the nitty gritty, shall we? How do we break free from routine? How do we get these kids out the door? Because heaven knows it is so hard sometimes. So I'm going to talk about like 5 specific things that make it easier for us, for me and my family, and hopefully you'll find that these might be helpful for you guys. Okay, so the first thing we do, number 1, is we make a bucket list each season. And I have a big, huge, giant chalkboard in my family room. It's like 5 feet by 4 feet. And one thing that we just love doing as a family is creating this bucket list for the season. So in the summertime, we've done things like a popsicle party. And the great thing about a popsicle party is it's very easy. It involves buying popsicles, inviting the neighbors over, and eating popsicles. Very easy. Going to the lavender fields, doing fireworks, like lots of things that we would be doing anyway. Going on some new hikes, just, summer fun activities. We've done a cherry stand from our cherry tree, lemonade stand, just things like that. And in the fall, we've done making donuts. When we used to live in Boston, we loved going apple picking, and that's one thing we've really missed here since we moved here. And so we have an apple tree in our backyard, so we've had our own like apple picking in our backyard. Going for nature walks, collecting fall leaves and doing leaf rubbings, things that are like not a big deal, not big things, but to my kids they are. Okay, so making the list is first. And I find that the more invested my kids are in the activity we're doing, the more they want to participate. So when they come up with these ideas themselves, it gets them kind of more on board. It's more collaborative, if you will. Okay, number 2. Waking up before my kids, which, let's be honest, at different stages in my mothering life, this is just impossible because I am not one of those superhumans who doesn't require sleep. I always admire those women so much. It's totally not me. So when I had babies, I couldn't really do this. Now my baby is 3, so I'm finally able to get up before my kids and get dressed. But you know what? Even if you can't get up before your kids, getting dressed before anything else, like as soon as you got out of bed, just getting dressed and lacing up your shoes, maybe putting on some mascara and lip gloss, sets the tone for the day. There's nothing worse than it being like 9:45 and your kids are all ready, their hair is done, and you can't leave the house because you're like, oh shoot, I'm still in my pajamas. That's known to happen to me, but I generally try and wake up before my kids, and that makes it so much easier to just be ready to get out the door when you want to get out. Okay, tip number 3 is to hold your ground. Now, let me explain what I'm saying here. When I have little kids, I thought that life was just going to get easier as they got older, and certainly in some ways it for sure has, right? My kids can buckle themselves in the car. Well, 3 of them. 3 of the 4 can. 3 of the 4 can put their shoes on, things like that. But in some ways it's gotten harder because I didn't know, I didn't really fully understand what was going to happen, which is my oldest, all he wants to do is play with his friends, and he really doesn't want to come tag along with his little sisters to go on an adventure. And this can like be really difficult because they can really put up a fight, right? Our kids can really punish us if they don't want to do what we want to do. And I have found that holding my ground when it's something that's really important to me to carve out time as a family, if I hold my ground and I'm like, no, we're doing this, you can play with your friends when you get home, 9 out of 10 times, my oldest ends up having the best time ever. He ends up later saying, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. When can we go to that place again? And he doesn't want to leave when it's time to go. And so I really believe that sometimes the best things in life really do take some fighting for. And so I just want to send that message home that as a mom, we do so much. As moms, we do so much for our kids. And I think it's okay to say, you know what? This is really important to mom. This is super important to me that we have this time together right now. Can you do that for me? And they'll probably still complain. But stick to your guns, right? Okay, number 4. Something that I try to do is I try to visualize the end goal and not the work that it takes to get to the end goal. So let me explain. So let's just use a hike as an example. All right, there's so much to do to get ready, and I find it almost always takes about 2 hours just to get out the door. And let me say, more often than not, these sort of adventures that we're going on, my husband's not usually with me. He's usually working. And so usually I'm kind of like having to do all this on my own. And so it's like, getting the shoes and making the snacks and getting everyone ready and then taking everyone to the bathroom, blah, 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 blah. And it's really hard to get out the door. Instead of focusing on that, I usually just find myself focusing on like how amazing it's going to feel when we get to the top of that peak with my kids and we're together at the top of that mountain, or how lovely it will be to be picnicking in that grove of aspen trees on a summer evening. And so that really helps me just to visualize the end goal and not all the work that it takes. Okay, number 5, this one is just nitty gritty. Snack packing. When I was telling my husband Dan that this was one of my points, he's like, snack packing? I'm like, yes, this is an important point. It is, right? If it's a summer day and we're going to be gone for hours, I got to think about logistics of food and hopefully not always be driving through a drive-through afterwards. So, a couple things that have worked out great for me or friends. My sister-in-law, Julie, is amazing about this. She is so good about all of her kids have water bottles and they're all labeled with their names. They're like the little Nalgene water bottles. And she always fills up their water bottles before they go out. And so they never have to worry about, I'm thirsty. They know they have ownership of their water bottle. Okay, for me, I used to spend all this time making lunches and making sandwiches that would just like sit in the bottom of the hot lunch bag and would never get eaten. So I've started just taking like a sleeve of crackers, some salami, some cheese, and maybe a few apples and calling it good. And that works out great for our family. My friend Lizzie is awesome. She's a mom of 5 boys, and she's just pretty much like one of my mom idols. Easygoing and super fun and just cool. And she would show up to the park with a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, a plastic knife, and she would just like be making sandwiches assembly line to give to her kids. I always thought that was clever and creative. One last thing I want to mention is that as moms, when we feel stuck, when something's repeatedly very challenging to us, I think when something's really challenging to me over and over, and it seems to be a habitual thing, that's when I know that I need to take a step back, get an aerial view of my life, of what's going on, and troubleshoot and try to come up with some solutions to make things easier. And so these 5 points are some of the solutions that I troubleshooted. The packing lunches is always a hard one for me. And so that was one that I'm like, okay, let me take stock of what other friends are doing, what works for them, and let me try to apply some of those principles. So hopefully some of these will make it a little bit easier for you guys to get out with your kids and go on some fun adventures. So I want to shift gears a little bit now, and I want to talk about one of my favorite ways to adventure with my family, and that is by bringing sort of like a global culture experience to my kids. So one of the things that was really one of the things I missed the most when we left Boston was we had so much culture around us. Our neighbors were Armenian and Pakistani and Greek and Italian, and we made really valuable connections with so many of these neighbors and friends. And I was kind of sad. I was quite sad to be leaving that when we moved to Salt Lake City. But the cool thing that happened is that I've been able to find that right here in our own backyard. Let me backtrack a minute to say that a few years ago we had 3 kids at the time. We had the chance to take them to Africa for 3 weeks. We boarded a plane. We flew over there. My in-laws were doing missionary work. And so we were able to visit an orphanage and a school and do all these really cool things. And again, that was such an amazing experience and something that's really probably not replicatable for most of us. And so, again, how can we bring that same culture here to everyday life? And so, I want to talk to you about a few ways that we've found to do that right here in Salt Lake City. And I'm sure you guys, wherever you're living, can have access to similar opportunities. Okay, so first of all, this past year, we've had this huge blessing of being able to be matched with a Syrian refugee family and become their mentors. And it has blessed our family so much. I'm doing it. We're doing it through Catholic Community Services, and we signed up. We had to do background checks and a training program, and then we were matched with this family. We got to be at the airport when they landed, when they first touched down on American soil. We were some of the very first people to get to hug them and welcome them and be there with our signs welcoming them. And it has just been a thrill. And what's been cool about it too is that we've become really good friends with several other families that are matched with this one family. So there's 3 other American families that are all matched with this one Syrian family. And it's been so cool to see with the really creative things that they've done for our Syrian family. So my friend Lisa's been amazing, and she's always going over there. She's taking gingerbread houses at Christmas time for the kids to decorate together. The boys are all playing soccer together. Another one of the families took them to Chuckarama because nothing screams America like a big buffet. So eat your heart out, right? We had everyone over this summer for a barbecue, and again, like to see their 3 little boys connecting with my kids and to watch them all playing together, even though they weren't speaking the same language, just to see that connection was super cool for us. One last thing I'll say about that, they had us over for iftar, which is their like break the fast during Ramadan, and we were able to sit on the floor and break bread with them and eat this amazing meal that they had prepared. So that has been a very enriching experience for our family. Another fun thing that we've done is we've gone to the Asian market and we've gone on a scavenger hunt, which sounds like it's complicated, which it's not. It was like me and my friend went, we broke our kids up into teams, and then we like jotted down some things that they needed to find in the store. And so there was like fish heads and octopus and all sorts of funny things that they had to look for. My kids loved it, and my son, like maybe he loved it the most of all. That was super fun. We love just trying out fun ethnic restaurants and Vietnamese food, Brazilian food, Peruvian food. And the great thing about all those places is they all have starches. So bread, rice, there's almost always something that kids can default to if they don't want to be too adventurous. What I just really want to raise kids that love people from all cultures and all ethnicities and all religions. And I found that these are some ways that just to open their eyes and open their awareness and see the world for what it is and see it as just a place of connection. And so that's something I really strive to do with them. And what I love about it is it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be difficult. We've done like a Chinese New Year celebration at our house and get Chinese takeout, put some lanterns up and get some fortune cookies and talk a little about the culture. When my library finds aren't like crazy, which they usually are, we'll check out books from that country and dive a little bit deeper. So those are just a few ideas to kind of get you on the path. And again, I wish that you guys could chime in with all the great things that you guys are doing, because I would love to hear about that. Maybe go over to my Instagram at Wander and Scout and share some of your ideas with me, because again, like that community is one where we really like learning from each other. In closing, I just want to share something that my mom shared with me this past fall. So my friend and I had gone up to Sundance, and we'd taken the kids. It was the most perfect fall day, one that I was like, we are not going to miss the opportunity to see these leaves. They're at peak leaf season. The wind might knock them off tomorrow. We're going up there. We're going to go for a hike, take the ski lift, just have a cool experience. And we did. And I came home and I told my mom about it. And my mom, who is the best mom ever, who raised 6 kids in a wonderful way, she said to me, you know what, Jamie, like, I wish that someone had given me permission to do that kind of thing with my kids. She's like, I just thought that dinner had to be on the table and I had to get the laundry done, and she's like, I could have skipped every now and then. Every now and then I could have skipped. And you know what? The thing is, like, we all turned out great. We did. We turned out so good, let me tell you. But really, though, we had a wonderful childhood, even though it wasn't necessarily that adventurous. But I think my mom is the one that wishes that she had been able to take those moments and steal away those moments with her kids for herself. And so as we are, that's something I've tried to live by is, you know what? I'm giving myself permission to steal away these moments. And I want to give you guys permission to do the same. And I know as we do that, we're going to create these memory books for our kids. Whether we're making the book or not, we're writing the memories of our kids' childhoods, and let's make them adventurous, whatever that looks like for you, whether that is curling up with a good book with your kids or teaching them. I have friends who are like the most amazing teachers to the kids, or doing movie marathons and popping popcorn, whatever that looks like for you. Just embrace that and call it an adventure. And good luck to you guys. And thank you so much for being here.